All right, I'm here at Grand Forest on Bainbridge Island today. So when you start looking around here, this is a nice area. You can see we have lots of large trees. We're also going to find lots of lush undergrowth. You can see these large cedar trees. Recognize that bark of the cedar tree, that vertical peeling bark, a little bit reddish in color. All right, so let's go see what we can find. So right here in the parking lot, we have our western red cedar, Thuya plicata, with these scale-like leaves, evergreen, and the peeling reddish bark. Okay, so right here in the parking lot, we have one that we have learned, the dull Oregon grape, Mahonia nervosa. So remember, this is a compound leaf with multiple leaflets, usually 9 to 15 leaflets even. And also you can notice the way the veins form in this leaf. They're a little bit of a palmate venation right at the base of the leaflet. That's another way to recognize it. That one might show it kind of. So this is Mahonia nervosa, dull Oregon grape in the Berberinaceae family. I also found some fruits on the Oregon grape. So you can see those berry-looking structures. They get a darker bluish black color. They're still kind of green right now. We also have our red alder, Alnus rubra. So this ovate-shaped leaf with the very straight veins, double-toothed margin. And I don't see any cones on this one. I did get to show you those last time. I'll try to find more. The little nutlets that they have, not actual cones, but they look cone-like. And the family is the Betulaceae family. We also have right here, still in the parking lot, our loud cars going by, sword fern, Polystichum munitum, with this once compound frond. And then on the back of the penny, you find the spores. This is the Dryopteridaceae family. We also have salmonberry growing along the edge here. Compound leaf with the bottom two leaflets having that sort of butterfly shape. So Rubus spectabilis in the Rosaceae family. Here we have bracken fern, Pteridium aquilinum in the Dentstadiaceae family. So remember, this one is going to be 3 to 4 times compound, very highly divided, and it can be very large. And then on the back sides, you will not see the spores because the spores are tucked under those leaf margins. They're rolled over a little bit. Okay, we also have here a wood fern. This is a new fern. It looks at first glance very similar to bracken fern, except it's only going to be twice compound, not 3 or 4 times compound. It also can look like lady fern. It has that sort of delicate texture. It's going to have spores on the back sides of the fronds. But to distinguish it from lady fern, down at the base, the penny do not get smaller. On lady fern, the penny decrease in size toward the bottom of the frond. So these penny would be small down here in lady fern. But you can see in this wood fern, they actually sort of get a little bit larger and angle out at a slightly different angle from the rest of the frond. They're sort of twisted more horizontal rather than vertical. And so that's another clue to the wood fern. This is in the genus Dryopteris, and in the family Dryopteridaceae, and I do not remember the exact species name. I will have to look it up for you and get that in here. But this is wood fern. All right, that wood fern is Dryopteris expansa in the Dryopteridaceae family. We've also got our trailing blackberry or bearberry, Rubus ursinus, in the Rosaceae family. So this one's going to be creeping along the ground rather than growing in a more upright shrubby form. Here we have our evergreen huckleberry, Vaccinium ovatum, referring to that ovate or egg-shaped shape of the leaf. I don't see any berries on this particular one, but it would have, usually you'll find the greenish to bluish black huckleberries that are forming on it this time of year in the Ericaceae family. Here we have vanilla leaf that we saw previously at Euland. This is Achlys, A-C-H-L-Y-S, triphyllum, referring to that trifoliate structure of this leaf. And then the margins are wavy around the tip of the leaf, sort of like a moose antler even. You can think of it like that. So this is that other plant that is, strangely enough, in the Berberidaceae family, just like our Oregon grape, but really doesn't look anything like it in the leaf structure, but does have similar flowers and fruits. But they're not around this time of year. And this is our Trillium, which might look similar to the vanilla leaf, but this is going to have smooth leaf margins and a very elliptical, wide elliptical kind of shape to the leaflets, and much more pinnately veined. It is a monocot, but the veins do branch in this one. It's one of the few exceptions. I'm sorry, much more parallel veined. It has some of the veins parallel and then some of them becoming more pinnate as an exception to most of the monocots. So Trillium, this is Trillium ovatum in the Liliaceae family. All right, I'm going to take the left side of the trail first. That's how much sword fern is out here, just covering the understory of this forest. So much sword fern. It is one of the dominant plants in the understory in these native forest areas, and so you'll see a lot of it. Here's another of our big leaf maples. It's hard to see the leaves up there, but notice the multi-trunked aspect of this plant and the heavy load of moss that it carries on the trunks and stems. So this is another way to recognize the big leaf maple, Acer macrophyllum, in the Aceraceae. All right, here's our red elderberry, Sambucus racemosa. So you can see this compound leaf, opposite leaves arranged on the stem. And I don't see any of the berries. It'll be hard to find them this time of year. But this is in the Caprifoliaceae family. There's also our evergreen huckleberry, evergreen blackberry, hiding down in here. So this is Rubus lacinatus, referring to that highly divided up leaf, compound leaf. And if you find berries on this one, I don't see any at the moment, but they are quite tasty. All right, here's just a little wildflower that you might find on the side of the trail here. I believe this is foam flower. It has tiny star-shaped flowers, white flowers, up at the tip in a sort of raceme structure, raceme inflorescence, and trifoliate, toothed to lobed leaf margins on the leaflets. Foam flower. All right, here's our salal, the Gaultheria Chalon, and you can see with the berries here. These are ripe now and edible, although not all that tasty. They have sort of a mealy texture. But these evergreen, ovate to elliptic leaves, alternate on the stem, Gaultheria Chalon in the Ericaceae family. Here's another small little herbaceous plant you might find on the trail sides. This is bedstraw, or Galium triflorum. It has whorled leaves on the stem, usually 6 to 8 leaves around in a whorl. And if you find you might find the fruits this time of year. The flowers are small white flowers that'll be grouped in threes. That's what triflorum means. And then when the fruits develop, they are 3 fruits together in a little cluster. And they have sort of spiny hooks like Velcro on them, and they will stick to your clothes, and you will transport them around and spread the seeds, or animals will. Galium triflorum in the Rubiaceae family. Okay, there's a small cascara on the side of the trail here. Notice those very straight pinnate veins in the leaf, but the margin is not toothed like alder. Otherwise, it might kind of look like an alder. And less ovate, not usually widest more towards the tip than at the base of the leaf for cascara. So this is Rhamnus persiana in the Rhamnaceae family. And this is a small Indian plum right next to the trail as well. A little bit hard to recognize because it is so small, but this sort of lanceolate to obovate shape of the leaf. And there's no yellow ones on this one, which is usually the giveaway for Indian plum. But sort of the more delicate, thin texture of the leaf compared to some of the other things that we see. This is Ommelaria cerasiformis in the Rosaceae. A nice good patch of our vanilla leaf over here. Hopefully you get a chance to see that. And some more wood fern with those bottom 2 pinnae kind of sticking out at a different angle from the rest of the frond. So start trying to recognize that as different from bracken fern or lady fern. All right, we've got several ferns together here in a nice clump. We've got our sword fern, which is pretty easy to recognize. We've got the wood fern that we've been learning today. And we've even got our lady fern. So hopefully you can see how it is a little bit different. This one's a little bit in a ragged shape. But the pinnae gets smaller towards the bottom, unlike the wood fern. And then we've got a new one, which is deer fern. And deer fern is one of the few types of ferns that has different kinds of fronds. So it's going to have a sterile frond, a regular leaf-looking frond, which is once pinnate. Looks a little bit like a small sword fern, but you won't ever find spores on the back of it because its spores are all on a separate fertile frond, which looks very different. It doesn't produce the pinnae, the leaves of the frond, the same way, and instead it's just producing the spores on the back sides of these very narrow pinnae. So this is deer fern, Blechnum, B-L-E-C-H-N-A-N-U-M, Blechnum, spicant, S-P-I-C-A-N-T. So get a look at all of these ferns. Okay, we've got a review of the western hemlock here. So the needles are small needle-like leaves, but remember there's 2 different sizes of needles in there, and it will have the small cone if you find it on the ground or on the tree. So this is Tsuga heterophylla in the Pinaceae family. And you can see here the thick, chunky bark of our Douglas fir. And hopefully you can be able to compare that, especially on these really large trees that you find here in Grand Forest. Be able to distinguish that from our red cedar with that thin, peeling, vertical bark versus that thick, chunky bark. Here's some more lady fern. So it looks similar to the wood fern, but those pinnae get smaller down at the base. So this is Aetherium Felix Femini in the Dryopteridaceae. All right, I'm gonna take a left and go up the Trillium Trail, which will loop back into the main trail. Okay, here's some of the leaves and fruits of our big leaf maple. So you can see that maple-shaped leaf with 5 lobes or so. And the fruits, which remember in the vine maple, the fruits, the winged samaras, are attached at about 180 degrees. They're straight across from each other. But in the big leaf maple, they're much larger, number one, and they are attached more in a 90-degree angle. So they form a V or a corner. And that's another clue to the big leaf maple. Remember, these winged samaras will fall off the tree, and that wing helps them disperse through the wind. All right, I believe we have here some more licorice root, or licorice fern, or sweet root, Glycyrrhiza. I have to look it up again, but it's in the Polypodiaceae family. It does have that sort of sweet taste to the root if you chew on it. It's also once compound, but will never get as big as the sword fern. There's also some starflower in here. Don't have the flowers or fruits on it at the moment, but these whorled leaves that stay low to the ground. So this is Trientalis latifolia, and it is in the Primulaceae family. Here's a better look at our Indian plum again, Omalaria cerasiformis, and here you can see many of them starting to turn yellow. This one turns yellow very early and loses its leaves. Okay, here's one we haven't seen in a while. This is our mountain ash, Sorbus sichensis. Another one that has compound leaves, but they're toothed and they're alternate on the stem rather than opposite like red elderberry. So this is Sorbus sichensis in the Rosaceae family. All right, here's another one we haven't seen in a while. This is red huckleberry with these very ovate small leaves with the greenish stem and very thin, sort of delicate leaves. And it would normally have red berries this time of year. This particular one doesn't have any, but I'll keep looking for them. So this is Vaccinium parvifolius in the Ericaceae. All right, here is our hazelnut with this, it'll be very pubescent, soft pubescent texture with hairs, a more elliptic to obovate shaped leaf, even cordate at the base of the leaf in some cases, as compared to alder, which it looks very similar to. And alder won't be very pubescent. And I don't see any of the hazelnut fruits, but I do see the catkins. This is where the male and female flowers will be produced. So the male catkins there, so it's a tight cluster of flowers male flowers hanging down, and there's the female catkin. All right, I'm going to be taking a right now and heading back over to the main trail. Don't stay on the hilltop trail unless you want to go a long ways. All right, here's a neat little wildflower on the side of the trail here. This is Pacific Bleeding Heart. You can see the interesting shape of that flower, how the base of the petals fuse together and form that little tube that extends back past the back of the flower. And then the leaves are very highly divided compound basal leaves coming from the base, and the flower comes up on its own separate flower stalk. Pacific Bleeding Heart, Dicentra formosa, Dicentra Fromosa, in the Fumariaceae family, Fumariaceae. Pacific Bleeding Heart. All right, here's another new little fern. It stays very small, just for size. You can see my finger. This is green spleenwort. It's named for its bright green color as compared to some of the dark green colors of many other kinds of ferns. And it's once compound. Here's the frond and the pinny. And notice the pinny are toothed, but frequently they're a little bit asymmetrical. So where at the base, they're not completely evenly, the tissue is not even on both sides of the midvein. So green spleenwort. This is Asplenium, Asplenium, viride, viride, which means green, and it's in the Aspleniaceae family. Okay, I think this is one of the buttercups in the genus Ranunculus. You can see these cordate, heart-shaped leaves, which are the basal leaves. And then it has some additional leaves that are more compound. You can kind of get a sense of that over here. But then that terminal leaflet is again that cordate shape. And up the stem to the top, it would usually have yellow flowers, but now the fruits are developing. And these fruits, you can see, also have these barbed hairs. So this is another type of plant that uses these barbed or uncinate hairs to attach to clothes or animal fur and be spread around that way. So buttercup, ranunculus. And I did find a few more trilliums on the Trillium Trail. The flower is gone, but the sepals remain. It looks like either the fruit, the capsule fruit, already fell off or did not develop. But the sepals are still there. You can see how that shows those 3 sepals of the monocots. All right, here's some more of that deer fern with the separate sterile fronds that just produce the leaf tissue and the fertile fronds that produce the spores. So this is deer fern, Blechnum spicant, in the Blechnacea family. Here's some more of that bedstraw, Galium triflorum, and you can see the fruits have developed on this one, and they have those 3 branches of 3 fruits coming off the top, and those will have the little hairs on them that stick to fur or clothes, and with those whorled leaves. All right, there is some stinging nettle along this trail, so don't touch it. But notice those ovate leaves with the palmate venation toothed margins. And you can almost see the hairs sticking off the stems and leaves. The hairs are what are injecting the toxin that makes you itchy when you touch it. And you can see the flowers hanging in these catkins. They are dioecious, So separate male and female plants. And the species is Urtica dioica in the Urticaceae family. And here's a review of our Douglas fir. So the needles can be more flattened in two-dimensional, but more often I find them more three-dimensional. Not with those two different sizes of needles like the hemlock, and with the larger cone that has those three-pronged bracts sticking out from between the scales. Pseudotsuga menziesii in the Pinaceae family. All right, this is reviewing one we've seen before at Paulsbo Fish Park, I believe. This is skunk cabbage. So large leaves, and they're all basal leaves. Normally, this is aquatic, so you'd normally find it in water, but this is an area that is dried out for the summer, but normally has water. And it doesn't have its flower right now. It's produced in the early spring. It is a spathe and spadix type of flower, so a tight cluster of flowers, inflorescence, like a fleshy inflorescence of the flowers, and then a bract or spathe that is yellow that sort of subtends and goes around all of those flowers. So look that up in the book. They have a good picture. This is Lysichiton americanum skunk cabbage. All right, continue on straight to get onto the main trail. I actually took a slight detour to the left down the trail here. There's some interesting plants, a little wetland area if you want to go look at it. But if you want to just keep on the main trail, continue straight. All right, here we've got thimbleberry. Remember, it's going to be very soft, pubescent to the touch. Maple-shaped leaf, but toothed margin, and 5-lobed. So this is Rubus parviflorus in the Rosaceae family. All right, here's a new one. This is false lily of the valley. You see this cordate heart-shaped leaf on the ground. It's just basal leaves, and then it puts up the flower stalk, which will produce a few flowers, and then eventually these small berry-looking structures at the very tip of the stem. So this is Maianthemum, M-A-I-A-N-T-H-E-M-U-M, dilatatum, D-I-L-A-T-D-I-L-T-A-T-U-M, dilatatum. I don't know if I got all that in there. In the Liliaceae family. So in this cordate leaf, you see how the veins are all very palmate, but they still don't form much of a connecting network. They're not very reticulated because it's in the monocot group, not the dicot group. So false lily of the valley, Maianthemum dilatatum, Liliaceae. And mixed in with the false lily of the valley, or right next to it, is another heart-shaped leaf, another cordate leaf. But this time you can see, even though there's some palmate veins, there's a lot more interconnection, a lot more reticulation of the veins in this leaf. This is wild ginger, Asarum, A-S-A-R-U-M, caudatum, C-A-U-D-A-T-U-M. And also these leaves are more thicker texture. They're actually evergreen as compared to the false lily of the valley, which is much thinner. And these, the wild ginger produces its flower down at the base. So down at the ground, I don't actually see one, but it would be down at the ground. And it's a brown, kind of almost fleshy flower with very thick petal structure. And it's beetle and fly pollinated. So that's why it's on the ground and it's brown instead of up in the air for the flying insects, and colorful. So Asarum caudatum wild ginger in the Aristolochiaceae family. Aristolochiaceae. All right, this one is very similar to the false Solomon seal that we saw at Euland. So it has these ovate leaves with parallel veins, alternate on the stem. But the false Solomon seal is just one branch that doesn't have any side or lateral branches, whereas this one, which is twisted stalk, does have side branches that come off of the main branch of the plant. So this is twisted stalk, and the scientific name is Streptopus, S-T-R-O-P-O-U-S, strep. No, S-T-R-E-P-T-O-P-U-S. I'm getting tired. Amplexifolius, A-M-P-L-E-X-I-F-O-L-I-U-S. And it's also in the Liliaceae family. So a monocot. Also notice how these leaves sort of wrap around the stem. They don't really have a petiole, and then the cordate base of the leaf just wraps around that stem. It is glaucous on the underside, so a waxy whitish bluish color. And the flowers are produced at the tips of the branches, and the fruits would be a berry-like structure that have not remained on this one. This was the flower and fruiting stalk here. So twisted stalk, Streptopus amplexifolius. All right, there is a little bit of holly out here, which remember is not a native plant, but the birds spread the seeds around. It doesn't tend to become invasive, however, but there might be a few here and there. Remember, these are simple leaves, alternate on the stem. So as opposed to our Oregon grape, which looks similar with the spiny margins of the leaves, but those are compound leaves. These are simple leaves on the holly. So this is Ilex opaca, or possibly Ilex aquifolium, the English holly, in the Aquifoliaceae family. All right, here is our trumpet honeysuckle that we saw once before, I believe at Paulsbo Fish Park. So you can see it's a vine. It's growing over a lot of the stuff here. It is opposite oval to ovate leaves. May have this purplish stem, although some of them are green. I don't see any flowers on it at the moment, but it would be a tubular flower, a honeysuckle type tubular flower, kind of orangish color. And so this is Lonicera ciliosa, C-I-L-I-O-S-A, in the Caprifoliaceae family, which has those opposite leaves. Oh, also the backsides of the leaves are glaucous, so a waxy whitish color. And apparently it's good food for the bugs, as they are eating it up. And it would produce berries also. All right, so finished up here at Grand Forest. I know it's a little bit of a trek out here to get to Bainbridge, but it's worth it to see all of the large trees and other things that we saw. We got to review a lot of the plants that we've been talking about all summer long. Hopefully they're becoming more and more familiar to you, and you're starting to snap those names off the top of your head very quickly. So hope you get a chance to come out here and walk through it yourself, but watch the video, take notes on the plants that I'm talking about, and have fun. Oh, also, I think I got a little lost at one point. So if you just follow the main trail on the yellow here on their map, if you can avoid the Trillium Trail if you want to, because that's where I got a little off course. So if you just stay on the main trail, you'll see everything that I talked about on the video, and it's pretty well marked. I don't think you'll have any trouble. All right, good luck.